Hi everybody, I hope you're tuning in and thanks for joining me on this lovely, well, it's Tuesday morning for me in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. And I'm Julie Stern and I'm a HundrED ambassador, and so I want to thank HundrED for this opportunity. If you're new to HundrED, it's an amazing organization, so you should definitely check out the page and everything that they have to offer. So this month's talks are on the 6 C's of deeper learning, developed by Michael Flynn and new pedagogies for deeper learning. But I feel like I have to show some visuals, so I'll be using some visuals. So this month's theme for HundrED's WEB-nesdays is the 6 C's for deeper learning, and it's for student and society well-being. And that's what I love about the 6 C's, because for me, I'm concerned about the state of the world. And I think a lot of people, oh, I see Margaret's watching, I see Lassie is watching. Thank you guys for tuning in. I think a lot of people who are involved in this work are concerned about the state of the world. We're concerned about natural disasters, about flooding that's happening in the United States right now and in other parts of the world. And the 6 C's really is about how we move beyond simply the traditional subjects in school and look at character education, citizenship, communication, critical thinking and problem solving, collaboration, and creativity and imagination. These are really similar to the International Baccalaureate's learner profile or ATL skills and a lot of other things out there that are trying to help students to have 21st century skills. I also like to show pictures of my boys. These are my 2 boys, Alex and Andrew. This is my attempt to try to get them to do a first day of school picture. That's about as good as I could get. This is me attempting to take a picture of them in front of the US Capitol, but there were rocks, so of course they had to start playing with rocks. But I'm always thinking about these guys and what worlds they're gonna inherit when they're adults, and that drives me a lot in my work as an educator. And so a few things that really gave me pause in thinking about preparing students for the future, preparing students to solve complex problems. Here's a graphic that's from Harvard Business Review. It's called How to Kill Creativity is the name of the article. But essentially there's 3 components of creativity. Motivation, which we think a lot about, especially in secondary education. Creative thinking skills, which are really popular now, but also this one about expertise. The idea that students need a significant amount of expertise in order to innovate. That really gave me pause when I first saw that and made me think about what am I doing that's going to really make sure students are developing that expertise. In addition to that, I've come across a lot of researchers who say things like Jerome Bruner, who really long time ago, the first edition of this book, The Process of Education, actually came out in 1959 or 1960, and he says grasping the structure of a subject is understanding it in a way that permits many other things to be related to it meaningfully. And so it made me say, what does that mean, the structure of a subject? And then this one, in really thinking about empowering students, this one gave me pause. When students seek patterns in the worlds around them, they see order instead of chaos, which builds confidence in their understanding of how the world works. So students seeking patterns in the world, students seeking to make sense of how the world works, to seek order out of chaos is something that said, how can we apply this to teaching and learning? And I came across Dr. Erickson's work. Dr. Lynn Erickson was a mentor of mine for many years, and she, thinking about the structure of a subject, she definitely gives us this amazing graphic of how knowledge is structured. And so she says, normally we sort of live at the factual level, but we can really think about concepts and put them together in relationship to make generalizations about how the world works, to create big ideas. So if you're familiar with Enduring Understandings from Wiggins and Mattei, or Alexis Mattei's work, that's the type of thing that we're thinking about. And so when thinking about how knowledge is structured, and then Lois Lanning is Lynn Erickson's counterpart, who's a literacy specialist, who says actually in English language arts, as well as all of the arts, visual arts, drama, music, as well as physical education, sports, world language acquisition, they're all process-oriented disciplines. And we can do the same thing where instead of living only at the strategy and skill level, we can think about concepts that stated in relationship can give us generalizations or principles about how the world works. And so drawing on these two amazing educators and what they've offered to the fields, I think they've given us language to make enduring understandings, to make big ideas, to reveal the structure of a subject. And so I just want to give you a quick example from the structure of process. So this is a poetry example, and normally we would study poetry, and I see in schools we would have students identify things like rhyme, identify repetition, understand the mood of the poem. But whenever we turn those into nouns, they become concepts. What's the relationship between rhyme, repetition, mood, and rhythm? And if we put those together, students could come to understand big ideas such as poets use rhyme and repetition to establish the mood and the rhythm of a poem. And so that really, I'm just going to hold it up to the screen a little bit better so you all can take a look. That really resonated with me, is if we can put these concepts in relationship to each other and state them, that's how we create a big idea. And so it's really about taking the traditional curriculum, the traditional standards, whatever it is that you have to teach, and making sure that structure of the subject is being revealed to the students through our planning processes. And I also think one thing that I really, really hope you all take away from this is the idea that it's not about right or wrong answers anymore. And so I use this visual a lot with students to say, it's not do I know it, do I not know it? No, it's something much bigger. What we're trying to do in school today, or in your home if you're a teacher of your own students, of your own children, is improve the quality of our thinking, improve our ability to reason, improve our ability to communicate and collaborate and problem solve. And so I really think it's about revealing the structure of the subject for students and seeing that it's about improving our quality of thinking, improving our depth of understanding, in addition to do I know it, do I not know it, not just stopping there. And so I just want to say, especially if you're just tuning in, I see a couple people just joined us. I'm the author of these books called Tools for Teaching Conceptual Understanding, and those have everything I'm sharing with you today are in those books. And so I've really just thought about how can we reveal the structure of subject to students so that they can become complex problem solvers. And so I want to show you a few examples of how we can do that, both in traditional disciplines that we teach in school and in ways that we can think about it for problem solving. And so I want to show you an example of a concept attainment. So if concepts and relationships between concepts are what unlock new situations, or what prepare students to be able to transfer their understanding to new situations, then we need to be really careful about how we teach. And so here's an example of a concept attainment exercise that I do with students, where on this side, I give them 3 examples of concepts. So in this case, the concept is rainforest, and normally this would be blank in my handout to students. And so if my concept is rainforest, my examples are the Amazon, another example is the island of Borneo, and then my final example is the Congo, the rainforest in the Congo. And so I don't tell them what a rainforest is. I imagine a lot of them can use context clues to say rainforest. Okay, I think I can I know the word rain, I know the word forest, maybe I can start to build ideas. Maybe they've never heard of Amazon, they probably have never heard of Borneo, they probably never heard of Congo, but through looking at these pictures and talking about what's in these rainforests, they can come to understand the common attributes or the common characteristics of a rainforest, such as a constant temperature, high percentage of rainfall, and lush plants and tall trees. Those are the characteristics that we use to say this is what makes something a rainforest. And by showing them examples, they can come to understand how we organize the world. And I want to show you another quick example of the same thing. If we look at something even more abstract like habitats. So we've got habitats here. Rainforest would be an example of a habitat. A desert would be another example of a habitat. And an ocean would be another example of a habitat. And so they're looking at these 3 examples. They're trying to say, what do these 3 things have in common? What are the common characteristics that make something a habitat? They would come to understand that habitats are unique environments that support plants and animals, and that those plants and animals depend upon that unique environment. And so they're coming up with what the critical attributes are of a habitat by exploring these specific examples. And so by taking the time to really have students develop and understand their understanding of single concepts, then we can start to put them together in relationships and say, what's the relationship between humans and habitats? And really start to develop the idea of interdependence. And what happens when we change one part of a system, and what happens to the other parts of the system. So students really start to understand the relationship between things, and they start to understand the concept of interdependence. And so another thing that I like to do is simply ask students to illustrate their understanding of a concept. And I like to do that a lot with Play-Doh. So listen, this is not just for young children. So I showed you in the beginning, if you're just tuning in, pictures of my boys. Of course, I have all of this in my house because these are my kids. But give some teenagers some Play-Doh on a Friday afternoon and they will be thrilled. But get kids to illustrate their understanding of concepts. And I just want to show you one example of students. I was exploring the concept of sustainability, and some students came up with simply the infinity sign, and they made it out of Play-Doh. And I just thought, just to illustrate the concept of sustainability, the idea of infinity, the idea that it's never ending, and bringing in some of the concepts from mathematics into a science class to really see those patterns in the world and make connections. You can also do things like put a whole bunch of examples on cards and give one to each student. And again, this might seem elementary, but try it with high school students. Tell them that, look, we're like doing this social, like an ice cream social or an at the mall social, or some sort of party, and everybody's got a different card. And we've got to figure out what do these cards have in common. If somebody has a girl, somebody has a lion, somebody has a fish, somebody has a carrot, and somebody has a leaf. What do these things have in common? And the concept here that we're exploring is living things, but I haven't told them that, and I haven't told them what are the attributes of living things. I've just given them the cards and say, talk to as many people as possible to see if you can figure out what's common among everybody that you talk to's cards, to really sort of get them to draw out the common characteristics. And so I use this visual a lot with students to say, look, instead of walking around like this, what we're trying to do in your brain is help your brain to have file folders, and that's what concepts do. They help us to organize information so that we can retrieve it more easily. And so this is really a powerful visual to help students understand why we want to learn concepts, why we want to learn conceptually, so that we can start to be making connections. And so through a lot of reading and researching, I've come up with something very simple I want to share with you guys today. And it's what I call the conceptual inquiry cycle. It's basically, we ask students an abstract conceptual question and we take them through specific context. This is something that I can apply to character education, I can apply it to citizenship, I can apply it to communication, I can apply it to complex problem solving. What's my abstract conceptual question, and what are the specific context or examples or learning experiences or stories or math problems or field trips or whatever it is that we're going to take students through so that they're deepening and refining their understandings. And so what an example of the last one that I just gave you guys would be, what's the relationship between human actions and habitats? And so that's my abstract conceptual question, and I'm taking them through rainforests, I'm taking them through oceans, I'm taking them through the Arctic, and looking at temperatures, global temperatures, so that they can understand the relationships between human actions and habitats, really increasing their understanding each time that they go through it. And so that's really what I'm trying to do in my work, is help students to see the structure of a discipline while they're learning. So basically helping them to make those connections in their brain. So I use visuals like this. Ooh, Alex and Frederica say, yeah, I like this. Help them make connections in their brains. And so I use a visual to say, you might be walking around with a neuron about recycle and a neuron about rainforest and a neuron about habitats, but the problem is they're not connected. And so how do we get them to connect in your brains is through ideas. So you can say human actions lead to consequences on habitats. For example, when we recycle paper, less trees need to be cut down from the rainforest, protecting habitats for animals. So when we put ideas together in relationship, that's when we're making those connections. That's when we're building schema in students' brains. And so I also go so far as to create visuals like this one, where I'm really showing, I know you can't read it, but I'm just showing students how the curriculum is connected and how we are forming those relationships in their brains. And so how does this relate to solving complex problems or social emotional learning, character building? The same exact structure works for character building and social emotional learning. So some examples that are from my book, this is straight out of chapter 7 of the elementary version of my book, is difficult situations help us to learn and grow. But we don't tell that to students. We allow them to discover it through a question. So the corresponding question I would pose to students is, what is the role of difficult situations in our learning and growth? What's the role of difficult situations? Everybody faces them. How does it affect our learning and our growth? And then we can use so many different resources to teach that. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Free Spirit Publishing, but I use these books with my kids, such as Calm Down Time, or even this one I love, it's called Angry Octopus, and it's about a story of an octopus who gets so mad and he learns to calm himself down through breathing and through lots of other techniques that have been proven to help people calm down. And so students start to understand that they can calm themselves when emotions get big. And so we can use the same exact structure, which I showed you earlier, the conceptual inquiry cycle. What's my abstract question and what context am I bringing my students through? And I do this with my kids as young as 2 and 4 years old. And so it can be with anyone. So that example I just showed you is I want my kids to understand that we can calm ourselves when emotions get big, or becoming more aware of our big emotions allows us to understand them and overcome them. Those are the big ideas. Those are conceptual relationships. That's the structure of social emotional learning that I want them to gain. And so I asked them, what's the purpose of becoming aware of our big emotions? Why do we need to name, right now I'm feeling quite frustrated. How is that helpful to you to be able to name that feeling? And really learning through stories, through your own experiences, doing role plays. Those are those contexts that we're taking students through. So I'll end with this. Thank you guys for tuning in. I love all the people who are still watching. I'm super impressed. And so problem solving and collaboration, I could put this together in a relationship such as solving complex problems often involves examining the issue from multiple perspectives, which is made easier when we work in teams because each person brings their perspective. And so that would be my big idea I would write as the teacher in advance. And then I'd ask students, what's the role of teams in solving complex problems? I'd ask them the question and then take them through some experiences where they would come to the conclusion that perspective taking is helpful in solving complex problems, or even cultivating passions. So I'm really into helping students to cultivate their passions. And a lot of that requires, developing our passions requires trying lots of new things and reflecting on which ones we enjoy. And so we pose that to students as, what's the role of reflecting on our lives in finding our passions? A lot of people haven't found their passions even as adults. And so really helping them to see the role of reflection in finding your passion is something that is a very simple, complex, conceptual relationship that we turn into a question, and then we take them through experiences where they're continuously answering this question, continuously refining their thinking. And so this is the way, if you go to my website, which is just edtosavetheworld.com, and I'll put it into the comment section of this video. I have a lot of resources of things that I've been talking about, but right now I'm thinking about what can I do as an educator and as a mom to improve students' quality of thinking, to improve their depth of understanding, to improve their orientation as learners, and to improve the strength of their hearts. And I think about those sort of 4 categories in everything that I'm doing when I'm writing curriculum and thinking about teaching and learning today. And so that's all I have for you guys. I really thank you for tuning in. Again, check out my website, which is simply Ed to Save the World. Do I have a better one right here? edtosavetheworld.com. And you can see there's a resources tab when you go to it, and you can check out a lot of free resources and a lot of free tools on my blog, and also shoot me an email. So you'll find my email there. Again, edtosavetheworld.com. If you've watched all the way till this part, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it, and hope you have a fabulous rest of your day.